the state's Executive Council. I now call this meeting of the Executive Council to order. As the chair of the Executive Council, I've determined an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent during our COVID-19 health pandemic. As is permitted under the open meeting laws in these conditions, this meeting of the Executive Council is being conducted virtually, and all votes will be counted with a roll call vote. Our first order of business, I'd call for a motion to approve the draft minutes of the Executive Council meeting held on December 1st, 2021.
So moved.
I now ask each member to state their vote. Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon?
Aye.
Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The minutes are approved. Our next order of business is I would like to recognize MMB Commissioner Jennifer Hasmer to present a request for approval of collateral for state funds. Assistant Commissioner Hasmer, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Great, thank you, Governor, and good morning to members of the Executive Council. For the record, I'm Jennifer Hasmer, Assistant Commissioner at Minnesota Management and Budget. This agenda item is a request for the approval of new collateral used to secure state funds on deposit at 5 of the state's banks. Executive Council approval is required by Minnesota statutes, Section 9.031, subdivisions 2 and 3. The collateral listed on the memo represents new collateral and the replacement of previously approved collateral that is maturing. I'm requesting your approval of this agenda item, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. At this time, are there any questions regarding the approval of collateral? Hearing none, I'd call for a motion to approve this request.
So moved.
I would call a roll call vote. Auditor Blaha, how do you vote?
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan?
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon?
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. I'd now like to recognize DNR Director Josh Henderson to present a request to approve amendments to 2 state metallic mineral leases to Vermilion Gold Incorporated. Director Henderson, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Good morning, Governor, Executive Council members. Again, for the record, I am Joe Henderson. I am the Lands and Minerals Director for the Minnesota DNR. And today I am here in front of the Executive Council recommending approval of amendments to 2 state metallic mineral leases to Vermilion Gold, a Minnesota corporation. The proposed amendment to state metallics mineral lease number MM10181 would add remaining 1/2 fractional mineral ownership interest in 80 acres to the mineral ownership interest Vermilion currently has under lease on that same property. The proposed amendment to state metallics mineral lease number MM10372N would add 40 acres to the existing lease for a total leased acreage of 59.68 acres. The lands proposed to be added to the leases are located in St. Louis County in the so-called Virginia Horn area between the city of Virginia and the city of Gilbert. The rules governing the issuance of state metallic minerals leases, Minnesota Rules Part 6125 0100 to 0700, provide that the Commissioner of Natural Resources, with the approval of the State Executive Council, may issue a negotiated lease to a qualified applicant under certain specified circumstances. One of those specified circumstances is when the state acquires additional mineral ownership in a government section where its mineral interests are held under a metallic mineral lease, or if there is identification of additional state mineral ownership not known at the time that the state mineral ownership in the government section of land was leased. In this instance, the state has identified additional mineral ownership interest in 140 and additional fractional mineral ownership interest in 240s within the mining units held under lease by Vermilion. Pursuant to Minnesota Rules Part 6125-0600, Vermilion filed an application with the Commissioner of the DNR on August 27, 2021 for state metallic mineral leases covering the additional mineral rights in Section 15, Township 58 North, Range 17 West in St. Louis County. The map attached to your briefing materials as Exhibit AI shows the location of the proposed lands and minerals to be added to the state metallic mineral lease number MM10181 and MM10372N. They are shown in orange on your map. and the location of other state metallic mineral leases held under lease by Vermilion in the immediate area are shown in yellow. Vermilion currently holds 17 state metallic mineral leases, with 11 leases located in St. Louis County and 6 leases located in Itasca County. The DNR followed its negotiated lease process before bringing the proposed lease amendments to the Executive Council. This would include land use screening, contacting private surface owners within a quarter mile, emails, letters, and briefings with the Minnesota tribes, the 1854 Treaty Authority, the Minnesota Chippewa tribes, and the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, notification of affected local units of government, website publication, a statewide press release, and the acceptance of public input. The DNR recommends that the additional lands and minerals be placed under lease to Vermilion by amendment to the state metallic mineral lease number 10181 and MM 10372N. The added interest will be subject to the same conditions, including rents and royalty rates, as the other state mineral interests already under lease. The basic terms of the state leases include rental rates that increase with the passage of time, a base royalty rate that increases with the value of the ore, the requirement to submit reports and other data, the requirement to submit exploration plans, and the requirement to comply with all applicable laws. Revenue from the leases covering these minerals is distributed in accordance with Minnesota Statutes number 9322, subdivision 1, which provides that 80% of the revenue from mineral leasing of tax forfeit lands is returned to the county, with the revenue distributed 4/9 to the school district, 3/9 to the county, and 2/9 to the township or city in which the lease lands are located. The remaining 20% of the revenue is distributed to the minerals management account. A copy of the proposed amendment to Vermilion for state metallic minerals lease number MM 10181 is attached to your packet as Exhibit AII. A copy of the proposed amendment to Vermilion state metallic mineral lease number MM 10372N is attached to your packet as Exhibit AIII. Please remember that if a mineral deposit is discovered, the lessee would need to prepare an environmental impact statement and obtain all permits and approvals required before mining could ever occur. The Minnesota DNR and the Pollution Control Agency have major permitting authority over associated with mining. Local units of government may also regulate mining operations through land use and zoning laws. In conclusion, it's the opinion of the DNR that Vermilion is eligible to be issued these negotiated mineral lease amendments due to other mineral interests held under state metallic leases in the same government section by the company already. It is also the opinion of the DNR that the acceptance and issuance of these negotiated state metallic mineral lease amendments under the terms set forth in the reports and the proposed lease amendments included in your packet would be in the best interest of the state. Thank you for your consideration. I'll take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Director Henderson. And accept my apology for changing your name to Josh. So before I think we take questions, we have other interested parties who would like to speak. I think in the best interest is let's have those parties speak and then we can take questions. With that, I'd like to recognize Vermilion Gold Chief Executive Officer Kate Lehman. Ms. Lehman, you are recognized for 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, council members, for allowing me to address the Executive Council this morning. I'm Kate Lehman, and as the Governor said, I'm president of Vermilion Gold, Inc. You may recall hearing from me at previous meetings during which I described a bit about the history of the company and the work we're doing. I think the last time I spoke was in August. Briefly, just as a reminder, we're a privately held Minnesota company that has been exploring in the Vermilion greenstone belts of northern Minnesota since 2006. And our geologists believe that there's a high potential for gold deposits in areas that have been underexplored, in our opinion. And over the last 18 months, we've been really quite active doing geophysical surveys, soil and rock sampling for geochemical analyses, and drilling work to sample glacial till and rock in our current 3 target areas. And one of those areas is the area, as Director Henderson mentioned, known as the Virginia Horn, located between Virginia and Gilbert. and surrounded by various iron ore operations and a lot of infrastructure as well. So Vermilion currently holds private and state mineral leases in the Virginia Horn, and we also own some fractional mineral interests as well. And one of the challenges of working in this particular area is that the mineral interests are very fractionalized, and ownership can be quite difficult to determine. So as part of the whole exploration process, our ability to lease or buy mineral interest is really essential to being able to explore for critical minerals. So the request we're making today is simply to amend 2 of our current leases, adding some fractional interests that are now available to lease that we either weren't aware of or weren't available when we first executed those leases. We're adding a fractional interest. We're also adding a bit of acreage to an existing lease. This will definitely help our ability to conduct more systematic exploration work in this particular section. So just want to thank you very much for considering this request, and be happy to answer any questions about the work that we've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wetland. At this time, we have one more speaker that I'd like to recognize before we take some questions. I'd like to recognize St. Louis County Land Commissioner Julie Marinucci. Commissioner Marinucci, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Governor and members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Julie Marinucci. I am the Land Commissioner for St. Louis County, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the leasing to Vermilion Gold. St. Louis County has a strong and robust mineral interest in the development and the exploration of minerals within St. Louis County, and we are very supportive of the DNR's work to make these minerals available for exploration. We work closely with the DNR and with the companies to bring these opportunities forward. And I will keep my comments brief. I know you have heard from us this fall when previous requests have come forward, but again, want to express our support. Vermilion Gold has been a good partner. We work very closely with Ms. Lehman on these opportunities, and look forward to moving this one forward. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marinucci. And I'd just like to state I'm supportive of these amendments, but I'd also like to congratulate all the parties involved with this. I'd like to thank DNR. We talked about outreach and making sure our partners and landowners and neighbors understand and are a part of this, so that there's not misinformation, that people understand clearly what's out there, clearly what the roles are. Vermilion Gold has been a key partner in that. They've helped us make that case. We understand our partnership with our county level folks to make sure that they're on the ground, they're most informed, and that we all work together. I have to say this process has been gratifying to watch it happen. I do think it sets a best practice for how we do mineral leases into the future. As we all know, they are, as they should be, they are highly talked about and they're of a concern of the public, but I think we proved we can do these things right. And so I'm very grateful. I'm supportive of this. I would open it up to members of the Executive Council if they have questions. Hearing none, I'd like to call for a motion for the approval of the request.
So moved.
I'd now call roll call vote. Secretary Simon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan?
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. Thank you all. At this time, is there any further discussion from members of the Executive Council before I ask for a motion to adjourn? Hearing none, I'd call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Roll call vote. Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan?
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, voting for the vote in favor of the motion. This motion carries. This meeting of the Executive Council is adjourned, and we say goodbye to Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
Thanks, everybody.
I now call the meeting of the State Board of Investments to order. As chair of the State Board of Investments, I've determined that an in-person meeting was not practical during the current COVID-19 health pandemic. As is permitted under open meeting law in these conditions, this meeting of the State Board of Investment is being conducted virtually. All votes will be held with a roll call vote. Our first order of business is I would like to call for a motion to approve the draft minutes of the December 1st, 2021 meeting.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote of all members. Secretary of State Simon,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
and I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The minutes from December 1st, 2021 are approved. I'd now like to recognize Executive Director Perry to report on SBI performance summary and the Executive Director's administrative report. Director Perry, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Good morning, Governor and members. If you turn to tab A, I'll go through our performance through the end of the second quarter of this fiscal year. If you turn to page 3, you'll see that as of the end of the calendar year, we were responsible for in excess of $135 billion, 94 of which were the combined pension plans. If you turn the page, you'll see that on page 4 that we continue to be ahead of the 2 combined fund long-term objectives of exceeding the composite index for 10 years, which we did by 40 basis points, and providing a real return of 6.3 percentage point over a 20-year period. If you look down at the bottom of page 5, you'll notice that for the quarter, we were in line, the combined funds were in line with the composite index. The fiscal year to date, we were about 10 basis points ahead, and over the past 12 months for the calendar year, we added 70 basis points and are positive for all other reporting periods. If you turn to the next page, you'll see that we are pretty much in balance with our strategic allocation. I'll have you turn to page 11 and you'll see our volatility equivalent benchmark comparison. The coded yellow line indicates that for all reporting periods that we added value on a volatility equivalent basis. Next, I'll have you turn to page 13 and you'll see that for the quarter, we performed in the first quartile, and for the last year, we were just slightly below the first quartile at the 28th percentile. We turn to page B, to tab B, I'll give you my administrative report. You'll notice that if you look on attachment A, you'll see where we are halfway through the fiscal year for our budget and travel, which has been rather slight. Item number 2, the legislative auditor did return to us a clean opinion for our audit. If you you'll see an attachment of their letter on attachment B. We also issued in January our annual report. Included in the remaining portions of my administrative report, you'll see the updates for our activity in Sudan and Iran. And as of this morning, I'm not aware of any significant litigation against us. Before we when you turn to Mr. Martin, I'll have a preface for his remarks, and then I would like to make brief comments after the 2 speakers we have for climate risk and DEI.
Thank you, Director. I would now ask any questions of the Director's summary. Auditor Blaha, you are recognized.
Can't let this go unnoticed. Thank you, Governor. it's not just a clean audit. Let's also be very clear. It's a clean audit, unqualified opinion, no written findings. And I have to tell you, during COVID, and at the size of this organization and with the leanness of the staff, I think we should really celebrate that, because it's a really short read. That's tremendous. Nothing better than a boring audit. And so you can be, I think, really proud of that. Also, I think the public, I also want to say that when you look at these numbers being so strong, I think the public should also know, though, that most of the time that we spent in the last several months talking with our consultants and with Director Perry, we've been talking about downside mitigation, right? The idea that, like a good Minnesotan, when things are going well, you think about when things are going can change. And of course, on a day like today, we're glad we've done that. But I also want to thank the entire staff, not only for doing such a good job on their finance, but thinking about when things change, because we know this is unlikely to continue forever. So again, I really appreciate that, and all the discussion we've had about how we're trying to get ourselves prepared for changes.
Thank you, Auditor. I appreciate your words and associate myself with them. Any other members wish to speak before Director Perry prefaces Chair Martin's private market commitments? Director Perry, go right ahead, and then I'll recognize Chair Martin.
Yes. If you turn to our private market commitments, some may be surprised at the number of items that we're bringing forth this quarter. There was initially the intent by me to not bring any, given my current status as a lame duck, but due to the vigilance of several of my staff members, we spent 3 to 4 weeks with some heavy debate and discussing what the impact would be if during my remaining tenure there were no investments made in the private markets. So we came to the conclusion that we would look at the entire, as far out as we could in our pipeline, with the thinking that not to do anything would be severely adverse to the portfolio. So the reason that you see 21 items in front of you is that we have accelerated some of the program that we would normally do, and want people to understand that while this looks like a lot of funds, that it probably represents a little more than half a year's funds just accelerated, so that there'd be no disruption.
Thank you, Director Perry. And as the Attorney General always rightfully reminds us, we spend countless hours before these meetings looking at this, and I want to appreciate your staff spending some time with us, listening and understanding why we did this. And I think when Chair Martin presents, I would like to note the thought that goes into these private markets. And I note that too, from Clear Lake, Cirrus, and TSG, these are private markets acquisitions in terms of about $300 million, and they're very much focused on our environmental, social, and governance goals that the state of Minnesota has. And this is a really big step forward. So, Director, I thank you for that. I think this was a wise decision. I want to thank your staff for spending the time letting us understand why this looks like this. And with that, I'd like to recognize Chair Martin to present on these private market commitments. Chair, you're recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Great, thank you. And good morning, Governor and members. On Monday, February 14th, the Investment Advisory Council met with the Executive Director and his staff to review the investment results for the fourth quarter of 2021 and to discuss staff's due diligence and recommendations for commitments to the 21 private market investment funds. These 21 commitment recommendations total approximately $2.6 billion and are listed on page 1 of the memorandum under tab C in your materials. I would just like to acknowledge and concur with what Executive Director Mr. Perry stated, that this is a larger number of commitment recommendations than a typical quarterly period. However, given the pending transition in the executive director's position during 2022, the IEC believes it's prudent and appropriate to consider these commitment recommendations at this time so as not to inadvertently forego attractive investment opportunities. Now, the council's discussions with staff focused on the general partners organization and staff, their investment strategy, market opportunity, historical performance, and the fund terms. Given the relatively large number of proposed commitments, I wasn't planning to go through each of them individually. However, I will highlight that 18 of the 21 recommended commitments are with general partners with whom the SBI has historically had very successful relationships. I'll focus my comments today on the 3 commitment recommendations with general partners that are new to the SBI. The first of these managers is Clear Lake Capital Partners, which is raising their 7th fund to invest in private equity, special situations, and credit or distressed investments in middle market companies. 3 key tenets to Clear Lake's strategy are control-oriented investments with flexible structuring, a focus on buying at attractive discounts to intrinsic value, and opportunities for value enhancement by improving operations, backing strong management teams, and a focus on active and ongoing strategic planning. The second new manager is Cirrus Partners. They're raising their 5th fund to make private equity investments in mature middle market technology companies in North America. Cirrus' strategy is differentiated in its value orientation, whereas many other technology-focused private equity firms focus primarily on growth. As such, their existing investors tend to view them as very complementary to their more growth-oriented technology fund exposure. Additionally, given potential macroeconomic headwinds, Cirrus' more cycle-resilient approach may be particularly well positioned. The third and final new manager recommendation is with TSG Consumer Partners. TSG is raising their 9th fund to invest in select companies in consumer industries which generally compete in less cyclical, well-established, and stable markets. TSG has an experienced investment team with significant operating expertise. They work closely with portfolio company management teams to improve sales, marketing, operations, digital and financial functions, and are typically able to increase revenues by expanding distribution networks, entering new markets, as well as strategic product line extensions and acquisitions. Now, based on our review of the materials and our discussions with staff, the IAC unanimously endorsed staff's recommendations for commitments to each of these 21 private market investment opportunities, as we believe each of these investments can provide attractive risk-adjusted returns for the SBI's investment portfolio. Now, that concludes my prepared remarks, but I'd be happy to address any comments or questions that the members may have on any of these private market commitment recommendations.
Thank you, Chair Martin. At this time, I'd open it up for any members' questions regarding the private market commitments. Hearing none, I would call for a motion to adopt the IAC's recommendations for the 21 private market commitments. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I'd call for a roll call vote of all members. Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon?
Aye.
Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The recommendations are approved. At this time, I would once again recognize Executive Director Perry to address the remaining items on the agenda before we will hear from members of the public who have requested to address this board. Director Perry, you're recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Yes, Governor members, if you turn to tab D, I'd like to introduce Sarah Bernstein. She's managing principal and working for Makita, one of our investment consultants. She's the project director handling the climate risk change projects that we engage them to do beginning at the beginning the fiscal year. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and then I'll, if there are any questions after that, we can go to the next item, and then I'll have something to say after the two of them.
Thank you for having us, and I just wanted to introduce our project today. This follows on all the work you've done, including our 2019 climate risk project. The project is to address the impact of climate risk and how best to mitigate its impact on SBI investment assets. For the first year of the project, we'll address these issues in 3 reports. Today's report is on global climate trends. For phase 2, we'll survey global pension plan leaders in managing climate risks and opportunities in their approaches to investment strategies to align with the Paris Climate Accord. And finally, in phase 3, Makita will analyze the SBI's current total portfolio exposure to climate risks and opportunities across all your asset classes and provide options for the SBI to discuss for potential implementation for a successful climate transition strategy consistent with the Paris Agreement. We've been working since last September on this phase 1 report. For this report, we researched and cover climate change global outlook, developments in the energy transition away from fossil fuels, how climate change is interacting with financial markets and developments in each specific asset class, what governments are doing and how climate policies, regulations, and institutional collaborations are evolving, and background on climate data, metrics, ratings, and analytic tools such as climate scenario analysis that are available now for investors. Through this research, we found overwhelming evidence that, first of all, global warming is real and affecting all of us. Physical climate risk and the energy transition will impact everything, as shown in multitudes of studies, including, for example, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 6th Assessment, which was released in August of 2021. And it will affect investment portfolios. So what does this mean for the SBI, the energy transition? There will be winners and there will be losers. In new transition sectors, there will be many winners with the wind at their back, but also losers. And also in even winners in traditional energy-driven sectors, as some current low-carbon technologies are displaced and emerge with new technologies, and some traditional carbon-based companies develop new business strategies to succeed in the transition. There will be short-term impacts and long-term impacts. In 2020 and 2021, we've seen a lot of volatility and experienced some of the short-term impacts. Long-term trends indicate that every sector of the economy, both the suppliers of energy and all the products and services that consume energy, are beginning to transition. Institutional investors are dramatically increasing their collaboration and efforts to move companies towards low carbon solutions, including votes against directors on boards that block progress. Just point out last year's path-breaking vote at ExxonMobil to vote in 3 new directors and vote out 3 historic directors. Institutional investors are also increasing their engagement with government policymakers and regulators, where new efforts continue to emerge. Important developments are also occurring in private market investments as well. For example, the CalPERS and Carlyle Group. Carlyle Group is one of the private equity managers of the SBI and that you have investments with, and also one of the largest private equity managers globally. Together launched a new ESG data convergence project with private market LPs and GPs to gather data from underlying companies from private market funds. And the project is gaining significant traction. Governments across the globe, from local and state efforts, such as Minnesota, to governments everywhere, are grappling with these issues, and government regulators are beginning to turn their attention to the need for disclosure and action on climate risks for both public and private companies. Next steps. The energy transition is expected to take at least 30 to 50 years. The bad news is we really don't have 50 years to get there. That would be much easier, given the near-term projections of the need to reduce emissions by half by 2030, which is during this decade, which is critical to successfully meeting the goals of keeping global warming to 2 degrees, or ideally 1.5 degrees. So the key today is, as we see it, is to deal with what's practical, what the transition looks like now, and what the SBI can do today to help achieve long-term climate goals and to help protect the SBI portfolio. As I mentioned, we're really just delivering this report today, this first of us project. I'm happy to answer any questions today or as we move forward. Thank you.
Director Perry, if maybe at this time, if after each of this, if Ms. Bernstein presented and as Ms. Gibbon presents, maybe ask the members of the board if they would like to ask questions at this time. If that's appropriate with you, I would open it up for any members that have questions of Ms. Bernstein.
Governor, I don't have any question. I just want to say to Ms. Bernstein, thank you for participating. Thank you for informing us, and thank you for making sure that we got as much information as we can get to make the best decision we can. So do appreciate your participation.
Auditor Blaha, and then Secretary Simon.
I'd like to echo the Attorney General here and really urge people to take a look at this report. And it's particularly helpful, I think, because it pulls together the common language, the things that we do have in common right now, the data that we can talk about, and the gaps in what we need to develop to be able to have a conversation that is both good for the environment and supports our fiduciary duty. But again, I think it captures a lot of what we've heard from people from the public who've been talking to us, and I think puts it in an organization that'll help us have a better discussion. So you take a look at this, know your scopes when you come out of this, and know your scopes 1, 2, and 3. This will have such a better discussion. So I really appreciate this.
Auditor, I appreciate those words. I would ask administrators on this call if there's any way that we can put the link to that in our chat today, or for those on YouTube who are watching, to make this easy for folks to get their hands on this. That's good advice, Auditor. Secretary Simon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Governor, and I just want to lend my voice to the chorus. I thought this was really extraordinary and really useful as a document. I know it's only one of 3 parts, but one of the things I liked is that it's one of 3 parts. You're giving it to us in digestible chunks. This is complex, this is layered, this is nuanced. So thank you for that. I also liked at the beginning, the report spends some time just level setting about common definitions, as Auditor Blaha said. What is climate change? How are we defining it? What are the terms? Who are the players? What are the measurements? That was good. And then finally, just personally, I really like the sector by sector analysis, where you talked about it isn't just, utilities and pipelines, the construction industry, or, other industries, manufacturing, et cetera, and their role, and some of the numbers behind that. So I've already reached out to make an appointment to follow up, not on everyone else's time here, but with some of my own questions. But I just want to thank you for what looks like a job well done.
Thank you. We're excited to be working for you on this.
Thank you, Ms. Bernstein. Director Perry, I'll turn it back to you.
Governor, members, and the public, you can find this report on the SBI website. Now I'd like to introduce Susanna Gibbons, who is a member of the Investment Advisory Council. Susanna and another member of the Investment Advisory Council, Morris Gibbons, have taken on the role of co-chairing the task force that I initiated in my last management plan. And she's going to present to you today some of their findings, and I'll let her take it away.
All right, good morning, and thank you, Executive Director Perry. I want to start by acknowledging all of the members of the task force. My co-chair, Morris Goodwin, Gary Martin, Carol Perfesso, BP Black, and Peggy Ingeson. It's been a tremendous group, and I want to acknowledge all the hard work that's gone into this. Moving to our initial recommendation, you have the full text of our recommendation in tab E of the meeting book. Bottom line with this recommendation is that we believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion should be an integral part of our investment process because of its potential to add economic value. I'm hoping to spend a few minutes today just walking you through what we did and how we arrived at our conclusions. So in laying out the framework for this, everybody on the task force felt that it was important to begin with an understanding of our role as fiduciaries. That's the foundation upon which we wanted to build our recommendations. And so our initial work on this fiduciary frame revealed basically 3 things. First of all, acting as a fiduciary is not prescriptive. It is about the process that we go through. We have a duty to inform ourselves, and part of that information has been collecting what is going on around the country with public plans in terms of their work on DEI and all of the research that is going on both in academic world and in industry. And so we need to inform ourselves about the current state of DEI. The second part of the fiduciary obligation is we have a duty of loyalty to plan participants, the state of Minnesota, and to taxpayers. And so we want to make it clear that this investigation is not about personal beliefs. It is about identifying what is in the best interest of all of those parties. And third, we want to make sure that we understand our duty of impartiality extends across time. And so we need to consider the long-term horizon in all of these issues. That already aligns with our statement of investment beliefs. That long-term horizon is an important part of how we evaluate investments. And so we need to consider the long horizon when we're thinking about diversity and inclusion. So the literature that we reviewed, basically, most of this has only become available, I would say, in the past 5 or 10 years, as more and more plans and investors are starting to investigate the potential benefits of improving diversity in their investment teams and in their portfolios. And we think it is absolutely critical at this point that we introduce diversity as an investment objective. Over the years, I think there has been objection to incorporating what some see as a non-economic topic. And so our research really clearly demonstrates precisely the opposite. This is actually a critical economic topic. I'm going to quote Thomas DiNapoli, who's the New York State Comptroller, from his testimony before the House Financial Services Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion. This is a meeting that took place about a year ago. He said, companies that foster diversity are more likely to outperform their less diverse peers. When they develop a culture of equity and belonging, companies are better positioned to drive long-term value for shareholders. By not addressing diversity and inclusion, companies are more likely to underperform their peers, face reputational risks, and jeopardize long-term returns. So our task force wholeheartedly agrees with those conclusions. We believe the focus on diversity is not only the right thing to do from a human perspective, but it is necessary from an economic perspective. The data clearly demonstrates that diversity should be viewed as a return enhancer, and we recommend updating our investment beliefs accordingly. The second agenda item that we considered as part of our task force is what we would call the DEI audit. We need to understand where we are now so that we can evaluate any progress that is made going forward. And so we need to consider the diversity of the IAC, MSBI staff, and of course, all those who we hired to make decisions on our behalf. We really need to establish a good starting point for this work. And again, much of what we are now doing has really become increasingly possible over the last few years as more and more investors are turning their attention to collecting this information. And so we at the members of staff of the MSBI have already started collecting some of this data, but it is only a start. And I think it would be a mistake at this point to focus too closely on just the demographics alone. We don't want to, again, promote short-term gains at the expense of true inclusion. And we think the economic benefits of diversity do not come just from the numbers. They come from creating environments where people from many different backgrounds are an integral part of the decision-making process. And so the second piece of our recommendation is basically to enhance the numbers of factors that we are including as part of our DEI audit to include qualitative factors as well. We think that will help us evaluate different organizations and determine which are being truly inclusive in their approach. I have been in the investment business for over 3 decades at this point, and I think this is quite honestly the most important work I have been involved in. I know you appreciate all of the incredible work and Executive Director Perry's contributions to the state board. But I really want to acknowledge the task force that he got started. And I think we owe him a tremendous debt of gratitude for his leadership in moving this forward. I think this is incredibly important and very timely. And so I think it's important that we start to move forward on these initial steps. But I want to also note that this is a very long-term effort, and I think we're just establishing a good starting point. A few things that remain on our agenda that we do still need to consider. We need to think about the benefits of establishing an emerging manager program. There are many different ways we can approach this, and so we're just beginning to collect information on these types of programs. We need to consider increasing amounts of due diligence so that we understand not just who is making decisions, but how they might be considering equity and inclusion in all of their investment choices. And then finally, we also need to consider basically developing a number of learning experiences for ourselves, because we believe to continually update our knowledge in this area will just make us a stronger organization as we try to capture the economic benefits of diversity going forward. So with that, I would be happy to answer any additional questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbons. I'll take questions from the board, but I would like to express my deep thanks for you being able to quantify, which I think all of us know, that diversity, equity, and inclusion strengthens us. To be able to quantify that into numbers and to make not only the moral case, but the economic case is critically important. And as we've seen in my trade mission to Europe a while back, we saw that folks are deeply concerned where they're going to invest, and we send strong signals as a state what we value and how we invest. And I think this work helps us make that case. And so I'm very grateful for that. Auditor Blaha, I saw you had a question or comments.
Oh, thank you, Governor. This is really exciting, and I think not just because we know it's the right choice. We know this is going to help us improve the fund, improve the strength of the fund, and improve the returns. But I mean, you've talked. I know, Ms. Gibbons, you mentioned how because people are focusing on this more, the data is getting better, the metrics are getting better. But in addition, I think we should really recognize the work that you are doing, and again, what's going to be contributing to this amazing legacy that Director Perry has is you're not merely building off, benefiting from the past, but you're building things for the future. The work that you're doing will help us get close to better standardization, get people talking about it. This is going to have benefits beyond Minnesota. And so what you're doing is really quite impressive, not just, again, for DEI, for its value, but also just the metrics you're helping develop here is really, I really think we should celebrate that. It's very impressive. And the speed with which you're moving is also outstanding. So thank you for all of that. Again, to the public too, if you're going to read something else, you definitely want to read this. This is also great reading from this packet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Auditor. Any further comments? Thank you, Ms. Gibbons. I'll turn back to Director Perry.
Okay, Governor and members, both the climate risk report and the task force were set up to report through me. Given the circumstances I've put everyone in, as one of my last things I plan to do is to memorialize these two activities and create or put them under the umbrella of the IEC as permanent committees, both for climate risk and for DEI, so that the work continues. I personally think that these two ESG initiatives are probably going to be with us for quite some time, and think that the best way to handle it so it's not a one and done exercise is to put it under the umbrella of the IEC. So the plan is to have a discussion with Chair Martin and plant those with the IEC by the next quarter. Any questions in that regard?
No, thank you, Director. I too would like to echo thank you for your leadership on this. This is for all the work you've done, and it people are starting to understand that, but this is a legacy item that will have far-reaching implications. And I'm grateful for that.
And lastly, I guess I want to turn it over to Chair Martin so that he can give a report on the other committee he chairs.
Great. All right. Thank you, Executive Director Perry. I appreciate the opportunity to provide you with a brief update on the status and the progress of the Executive Director search process. Just by way of background, the board approved a resolution at its December 1st meeting that established the Executive Director Search Committee. The 10-member committee is comprised of one designee of each of the 4 board members, the executive directors of the 3 statewide retirement systems, and 3 members of the Investment Advisory Council, including the chair. Now, the board resolution charged the committee with 4 primary tasks. That is, number 1, reviewing and amending, if necessary, the executive director's job description, engaging a national executive search firm following all necessary procurement rules to assist in conducting a national search, recruiting candidates, and vetting applicants for the position. Third, interviewing candidates identified through the search process as suitable for the position. And finally, making recommendations to the board to fill the position. We held our first meeting of the committee on December 21st, during which I was nominated and elected as committee chair. Our primary focus to date has been on reviewing the job description and developing and issuing a request for proposal, or RFP, to engage a search firm to assist the committee in the search process. The RFP was finalized and issued on January 24th. The deadline for submitting proposals was February 14th. 3 search firms submitted proposals. The committee members are currently in the process of reviewing each of the proposals, and we will be meeting next week to discuss and evaluate the proposals. Our objective is to reach a decision as to the search firm selection in the very near future. We anticipate needing approximately 2 weeks to negotiate and execute a contract with the search firm. I'll outline an approximate timeline for the remainder of the search process, but I would highlight that it is fluid and subject to change. We anticipate selecting and beginning to work with the search firm by the second half of March. We anticipate that during the April to May timeframe, the search firm will be actively working to recruit, screen, and provide a diverse slate of qualified candidates. During this period, we expect that we will have ongoing discussions and periodic meetings with the search firm to monitor their progress on identifying qualified candidates. We expect to conduct candidate interviews in June and develop and present our recommendation to the board in the July timeframe. So in a nutshell, that's just a brief update on our search process. We're early in that process, but I do feel like we're on track and it's moving well, and plenty of work ahead of us to fill this important position. Be happy to address any comments or questions you might have.
Chair Martin, thank you. Thank you for taking on this added duty. We're grateful. The stability that's been provided by Director Perry is clear in performance and longevity of folks like yourself serving. So I'm grateful that you're helping keeping that going. Members of the board, any questions regarding the search for Director Perry's replacement? Hearing none, I would turn it back. Director Perry, any final comments on your reports before we move to our public speakers? I'm sorry, Director, I think we had you on mute.
Yeah, I have no further comments, Governor.
Very good. At this time, the SBI has received requests from one group who would like to speak at this meeting. I'd ask that group to please limit their remarks to 5 minutes. Ms. Chloe Jackson and Ms. Ariana Anderson of Renters United for Justice, you may present and you are recognized for 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Good morning, board members and staff. Thank you for inviting us to present to you all today. My name is Ariana Anderson and I'm a member of IX. I live in North Minneapolis, Havenbrook Homes. Today I'm here to provide an update concerning my home and the changes I have seen since I last spoke at the December 2021 MSBI board meeting. Since the beginning of January, my home has had some repairs, but many were not made. Additionally, new serious problems emerged in my home. Of the repairs needed in my home, the kitchen floor has been repaired and replaced. The living room floor was repaired. The doorknobs appear to be fixed, and the air duct was reattached to the vent. However, the circuits continue to overload easily, causing the circuit breaker to trip regularly, and the rental license on the wall still has the wrong address, and the water damage in the kitchen ceiling was not repaired. At the end of January, my home felt another city inspection because the license was not replaced and the water damage was not repaired in the kitchen. The city gave Havenbrook another 30 days to fix these problems, but even after some repairs were made, I continue to have serious problems in my home. After the floor was repaired, my front door became difficult to open and close, leaving my home drafty and colder than it already was. I have also had a heat emergency with the heat set at 73 degrees Fahrenheit. All the rooms on my main level are below 68 degrees, with the heat in my bedroom measuring below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sunroom measuring 29 degrees Fahrenheit. The sunroom is technically not a part of the house that I paid to inhabit, but even with the door shut, the draft is coming through the room. It has a significant draft coming through the door, which causes my home to be colder than usual. Communication with Havenbrook staff is still not transparent, and sometimes workers show up unannounced with very little notice. Although some work has been done, there's still more work to do. We are asking that you continue to think about Havenbrook renters at this moment. We know that the board has already agreed to invest in landmark areas in December of 2021. In wake of our experience in the past 2 months and the recent legal action by the Attorney General's office, we are asking you to encourage this company to be accountable. So today, we're asking you, what can you do to make sure the company meets with us and addresses our ongoing concerns? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Ms. Jackson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Governor. Governor and board members, I understand that you all said that we have 5 minutes, but I wasn't to ask if I am able to read the full read my comment that I submitted in full so it can be on record if possible. It's roughly like 10 to 12 minutes if possible.
Yeah, if you can submit your written comments for the record, we can take those, Ms. Jackson, but I would ask you to try and keep your remarks as brief as possible so we can keep moving.
All right. Well, with that being said, good morning, board members and staff. Thank you for having us present today. My name is Chloe Jackson. I'm a lead organizer with Renters United for Justice. I'm just here today to provide an update concerning the Havenbrook tenants since we last spoke at the December meeting for the MSBI board. After December's meeting, Francisco Borges, chairman of Landmark Partners, reached out to IX on December 14th to begin discussing the tenants' issues that we brought forward to Havenbrook about Havenbrook's management since 2020. We spoke a few times on the phone in December. Frank wanted a list of maintenance issues in North Minneapolis. However, IX wanted to have a larger conversation about the many issues renters were facing, including maintenance. At the very beginning of January, Tatiana Gutierrez, Managing Director of Affordable Housing and Social Impact at Pretium Partners, reached out to introduce herself. This was the first time a representative of Pretium had contacted us, even though we had reached out to Pretium Partners to resolve issues in North Minneapolis homes after they acquired Havenbrook homes and front yard residentials. On January 4th of this year, I sent a list of North Minneapolis Havenbrook properties with the maintenance issues experienced at each property to Frank and Tatiana. Tatiana responded by inviting IX and other community tenant and housing organizations to attend a set of Pretium's inspections of some of the properties. Tatiana told us she had selected the sampling of homes to give her a sense of the scope of work needed across the portfolio. Some of our members were already on the list, and IX added 2 more homes based on egregious conditions. Pretium invited Chuck Bogan, Vice President of Inspection Services from U.S. Housing Consultants, to join us. The inspections took place from January 11th to January 14th. At the time of those inspections, Tatiana engaged with tenants about their situations and needs. She made statements like, "We're going to take care of these issues," to nearly every tenant she spoke with, including some of IX members Tiki, Shanika, Brianna, and Savan. Tenants were heartened by Tatiana's promises, hoping finally they would get the conditions in their homes fixed. On January 18th, IX discovered that 21 Havenbrook families renting in Columbia Heights, a suburb outside of Minneapolis, received notices to vacate by March 4th, 2022, because the city revoked Havenbrook's homes licenses due to lack of repairs. Upon hearing about this, I called Tatiana to notify her and sent her links to the press articles. Tatiana was unaware of the situation in Columbia Heights, and she was unaware that Havenbrook representative in Minnesota, Scott Beck, had been receiving notices about the license revocations that he had not responded to. Tatiana asked for steps to get the licenses reinstated, and I connected her with the City of Columbia Heights website where she could find contacts. I also suggested expeditiously that she reached out to the Columbia Heights mayor and the fire department that directly deals with rental license to ensure tenants won't have to move in the middle of the winter. On Thursday, January 20th, Frank finally set up the official meeting with Pretty Partners. We have been asking for it since the beginning of December. I met with Tatiana, Frank, Paul Mielman, who's a partner at Landmark Partners, and Jeffrey Leibovitz, Managing Director of Corporate Strategy, Capital Management, and Asset Management, to discuss how to resolve the issues in the Minnesota portfolio. IX presented the Aries Pretium team with a list of issue areas tenants had shared with IX or what we have been seeing in our organizing. We hope to discuss and hopefully resolve some of the issues before today's meeting. IX also hope to gain a process for a clear communication between the company, the property management, and the tenants. Some of the issues we shared included plans for emergency repairs, ongoing maintenance, a resolution to third-party utility payments, and a location and direct contact for tenants to resolve repairs and other issues. At the end of the meeting, Tatiana asked to have continuous meetings to resolve the issues we had discussed. We then set up regular meetings that extends through the end of the year. At that time, Frank and Paul decided not to attend the regular meetings, but they expressed willingness to attend meetings we invited them to. I met with Tatiana January 28th, February 4th, and February 9th. On January 28th, Tatiana gave us an update on the work that was being done to address the displacement of the Columbia Heights tenants, as well as repairs in the Minneapolis portfolio. She was in direct contact with 6 renters in Columbia Heights. She asked me for my ideas about hosting a tenant meeting for all the 21 families in Columbia Heights. I told her it would make sense when she had a clear solution that she could talk to about with the residents. She also gave updates about the company's plans, including increasing the number of maintenance techs on the ground, preparations for temporary relocation for residents whose homes were in repair, and conversations between Pretium and a general contractor company, Roanoke, that could perhaps undertake renovations at their Minnesota properties. On February 4th, Jeff joined us for the meeting. Jeff explained to me that he was a key person in the purchase of this front yard residential Minnesota portfolio. At this meeting, we continued our discussions started on January 20th. She also reported that the company was still in the process of doing a portfolio-wide assessment of repairs and renovations still needed, warning that this would take over a month. I asked Tatiana to ensure that there be no more displacements of renters in Minnesota, and Tatiana confirmed that that would be the case. We also asked for a contact person from the company to whom we should report all the maintenance needs to. At that time, Tatiana indicated that she would be the direct contact person, and she was building out her team. We asked for a repair schedule. Tatiana responded that she had a lot of techs on the ground, and she would supply a dashboard for maintenance issues in progress. Their Pretium's rental company would take over the management of the whole portfolio of the whole Havenbrook portfolio. We asked about adjustments in the rent due to the issues renters had faced. Tatiana responded that in Columbia Heights, the company would collect February rent and that they plan to waive rent in March. In Minneapolis, Tatiana indicated that the company was still considering freezing rent increases and long-term renewals. On Sunday, February 6th, via text, Tatiana proposed a meeting with the renters in Minnesota for the 15th or the 16th. February 9th was our last meeting. For this meeting, I invited our co-executive director, Roberto De La Riva, with the hopes that we could get answers on the issues we had presented weeks prior. IX agenda items included to continue the discussion areas and see what could be resolved and to hear what was happening with the license process for Columbia Heights tenants. Instead, the meeting started with Tatiana expressing frustrations because one of our members, Rachel Jones, who's a Havenbrook tenant, spoke at a tenant listening session held by the U.S. Banking Committee on Tuesday, February 8th. Rachel's story had been previously entered into the congressional record on October 21st during the previous Senate Banking Committee hearing, as well as shared at multiple public meetings, including meetings with multiple members of Congress. Honestly, we was not aware, IX wasn't aware that we needed to communicate Rachel's invitation to the Senate Banking Committee session, but I did not neglect to share that information out of malice. At that time, Tatiana stated that she felt blindsided and violated, and that we, IX, had violated the partnership that we had built. The meeting with Tatiana and Jeff ended quickly, like in about 20 minutes, instead of us continuing to address the problems we were trying to resolve. This took place the day before the Minnesota Attorney General announced a major lawsuit against Pretium, Havenbrook Homes, Front Yard Residential, and others. At the end of this conversation, both Tatiana and Jeff suggested that they or likely their company would take a loss in this market. Tatiana then said that she would follow up after the meeting, but she only responded to IX staff twice about specific tenant cases since that day. On February 11th, I did send Tatiana an email letting her know that we were planning a press conference for Wednesday, February 16th, where renters would be speaking about their experience about Havenbrook. I did invite her to the press conference and suggested that this is an opportunity where Pretium can make a commitment to renters by freezing or abating the rent. Since then, they did not respond. We continue to be concerned about the poor conditions of Havenbrook Homes in Minnesota, which we shared with this board. Too many of these maintenance issues remain unresolved, and the property owners have been slow to make the systemic changes necessary to ensure these problems do not continue to arise and potentially worsen in the future. I am going to finally end with this, saying this. We are asking that you do not forget tenants at this moment. We know that the board has already agreed to invest in landmarks in December. In the wake of our experience in the past 2 months and the recent legal action by the Attorney General's office, we are asking you to encourage this company to be accountable. Ask this company why they believe Minnesota should invest in them when their subsidiaries are not investing enough in Minnesotans. How can we make money from our retirees to invest? How can we take money from our retirees to invest in a company whose subsidiaries, according to the Minnesota Attorney General's complaint, have engaged in a deliberate and calculated strategy to extract from their tenants by severely under-maintaining their homes? Lastly, we are asking that you do not continue to make similar investments in Pretium, Landmark, or Aries until they can invest in our community with compassion and common sense. Thank you so much for taking the time out to listen.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. At this time, are there any questions from the State Board of Investment members? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I call for a roll call vote. Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Secretary Simon.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. This meeting of the State Board of Investment is adjourned. Secretary Simon, before you leave, I'd like to note that with the improving COVID situation, is our hope that our next quarterly meeting can be held in person. And I know that he may not want that, but it'll give us an opportunity to see Director Perry in person at that meeting and be able to thank him for the many years of service. So at this time, we're planning on that movement. So we'll watch how it goes and hopefully see you then. Thank you, everyone. The meeting's adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Land Exchange Board to order. As chair of the Land Exchange Board, I've determined that an in-person meeting was not practical or prudent due to the current COVID-19 health pandemic. As is permitted under Minnesota's open meeting laws in these conditions, this meeting of the Land Exchange Board is being conducted virtually and all votes are counted with a roll call vote. Our first order of business is I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes of the December 1st, 2021 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I'll call roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Aye, Governor Walz vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The minutes are approved. We have two orders of business. The first being, I'd like to recognize U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuge Supervisor Tom Kerr and Realty Officer Daniel Kepford to present two requests for approval. Supervisor Kerr and Realty Officer Kepford, you're recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Thank you, Governor and members of the board. For the record, I'm Danielle Kepford, the Realty Officer for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Midwest Region, located in Bloomington, Minnesota, and also available to answer questions as Tom Kerr, Area Supervisor for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Midwest Region here in Bloomington, Minnesota. We are here today to request approval from the Land Exchange Board in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Small Wetland Acquisition Program. And may I draw your attention to the first page behind tab 2. For the record, the first paragraph states the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service requests authorization to purchase fee title for 7.22 acres of private land in the county listed below under the authority of Section 4C of the Migratory Bird Hunting and Conservation Stamp Act of March 16, 1934, as amended, and in compliance with the provisions of the Wetlands Loan Act of 1961, as amended. The Wetlands Loan Act of 1961 requires that no land shall be acquired with monies from the Migratory Bird Conservation Fund unless the acquisition has been approved by the governor of the state or the appropriate state agency. And in Minnesota, approval is provided by the Land Exchange Board. This tract has been certified by the county board. And we request approval for this land acquisition.
Thank you, Realty Officer Kepford. At this time, I'd ask if there's any questions regarding the 7.22 acres of private land, the acquisition. Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve this certified fee acquisition.
So moved.
Roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. I continue on.
All right, and now may I draw your attention to the first page behind tab 3. I will decline from reading the same paragraph. However, I will state that we are looking to purchase and requesting approval to purchase 618.82 acres of habitat easements on private property in the counties listed below using the same statutory regulations and requirements per the Wetlands Loan Act. The counties have certified these acquisitions as well. And in closing, we do request approval for these acquisitions and are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kepford. Any questions on the previously listed acquisition? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve the requested certified easement acquisitions. Do I hear a motion?
I'm out there.
Thank you, Auditor. Roll call vote. Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. Thank you, Ms. Kepford.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion from members of the Land Exchange Board? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
A roll call vote. Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. This meeting of the Land Exchange Board is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you.